This is the Share the Knowledge podcast for DJs. So I want to talk about the process of elimination. And in this case, I want to utilize that technique to solve issues, technical issues. I'm going to relate that to a question I received. And the question is from a DJ who just started the DJ journey and is having a little problem. So he bought Serato Scratch Live, the SL1, the Rain SL1, and a turntable and a mixer called the Skytech STM 2300. I do not know that mixer. So he connected everything to Serato, just like I mentioned in my YouTube video. And the problem is that the channel faders and crossfader don't work. The volume of the tracks are still the same. Do you know how to fix it? So my answer for that question is no, because I do not know the mixer. I'm not seeing the mixer or how you connected everything, so I can't judge what's wrong. But this leads me into what I want to talk about, and that is the process of elimination. When you run into technical issues, so whatever DJ gear you're using, if it's not working the way it should work, you need to think of all the different scenarios that could cause this. So without knowing this situation, because I don't know the mixer, so I don't know part of the equipment, if I was in a situation where I'm connecting all sorts of stuff and I'm not getting it to work correctly, I'm going to check all of these things and I'm going to eliminate every one once I tested it. So first off, I would need to make sure that Serato is connected correctly. So are the turntable outputs, the RCAs, going into the SL1 inputs? Are the outputs going into the channel in line ins on the mixer? I'm going to check to see if that's correct. If I see that all of that is connected the right way, then I can just mark that one and eliminate that. That is not causing the issue. Okay, so I've connected it correctly. Then I'm going to check, for instance, to see if the mixer has certain settings that allow you to adjust things on the fader. I've had a mixer once and I had my channel faders all the way up and I was not getting audio and I didn't understand. And then I saw that this mixer had a hamster switch for the channel faders. A hamster switch is a switch that allows you to basically reverse the fader. So in this case, when the channel faders were up, that meant that they were actually off, not giving you volume. And the more you took them down, the more volume you were getting. So in this case, I'm going to check the mixer. Okay, is this mixer set up correctly? Is it supposed to give me more volume when my faders are up? So maybe I just take a normal piece of vinyl, connect that turntable directly to the mixer and see if the faders on that mixer are now working the way they should work. So when they're up, are they giving me audio? When I bring them down, is the volume decreasing now? If it works correctly with like a normal piece of vinyl, then I know that the actual faders on the mixer are not the problem. That's what I mean by when I say process of elimination. Anytime I run into issues, I have to see what the problem is. Now, I can't really elaborate more on this particular situation. Again, like I said, I'm not seeing the setup. I don't know the mixer. But I've been in plenty of situations where I had a gig and I had my equipment set up and something was wrong with the audio. So either I was not getting correct audio or we were not getting audio. Now, in most cases, I was dealing with engineers, especially when you're like going into clubs or doing festivals. Over the years, I noticed a lot of times that the sound people, the sound men, women, engineers, however you want to call them, they would always start their process of elimination with your equipment. So in most cases, they would tell me that it's probably my mixer. Now, in a lot of cases, I just came from a gig where I used the exact same mixer and it was working perfectly. So in my head, it's like, no, that's probably not the issue. But I'm going to check everything. So I'm going to check to see if I've connected all of my equipment correctly. Are the turntables connected to either, like back in the days, my SL1? And is that connected to my mixer correctly? Yes, that's all in order. So that should be working fine. Is my mixer connected properly? Is it getting the power? The outputs, master out, is it going out? Is my booth out going out the right way? Yes, looks fine. Settings on the faders, check that. Is anything wrong? Is a hamster switch on? Anything happening here? No, perfectly fine. Some mixers have a little like screw knob on the back that allows you to adjust master tempo and master volume. And if that's turned up too much, you get distorted audio. No, that's fine. I've connected line inputs to the phono input. That's going to mess you up as well. So you're just checking to see all of those things. I would always check. I would see, okay, I've connected everything correctly. That's not the issue. Mixer is perfectly fine. Looking at the turntable. All right. First off, is it my turntable? Was it working last gig? Yes. Then it should be fine. But still, I'm checking. If I'm using the club's turntables, then I'm going to assume that the problem might be there. So I'm going to start with my needles to check and see, okay, is this turntable working correctly and that one not? Then I'm going to switch the needles and see if we still have the same issue. Now, if I take the needle from the working turntable, put it on the other turntable, and the turntable's still not working, then I know that the needle was not the issue because the needles are working on one turntable, not the other. So it's probably something else in the turntable. Could be the tone arm, could be the RCAs from the turntable, but I'm going to go through that process. If everything there is working fine as well, because I'm hearing in the headphones that the audio is perfectly fine, then we see what happens a lot of times, and that is that the output from my mixer was going into a DI. That's a little box that they use to connect it to their PA system. And a lot of times those boxes will just be broke. Or for instance, they would give me cables that I would use to connect my mixer to their DI box, and they would just give me faulty cables. So a lot of times they would blame it on my equipment, but at the end of the day, most likely they would have either a DI box that wasn't working or they used cables that weren't working correctly. But I would go through that process of elimination to make sure that everything is working fine on my end. Now, I just wanted to put that out there because you might end up in situations where you're playing at a venue or whatever and something happens. If it's a place where you don't know the people, a lot of times they'll look at you and assume you're doing something wrong. So you just want to make sure that you can go through the process of elimination and see if you've done all the things you needed to do correctly. If everything is set up the right way, every setting is correct, cables are correct, and if that's the case, then the problem must be somewhere else. USB cables for all you digital DJs out there. I try to bring two because I've been in a situation where at Amsterdam Dance Event a couple of years ago, I was doing like a masterclass for Pioneer, and I was using their new turntables, and I was using the S9 when it was pretty new, and somehow it just would not work. I tried everything, needles, you name it. One of the last things I thought about was, let me just try a different USB cable. And yes, that turned out to be the only issue. Before that, we even tried 3 different laptops, and they all wouldn't work. And at the end of the day, it turned out to be something as simple as a USB cable. So yes, since we're playing digitally, you now have more things to check compared to when I just had a normal turntable and vinyl. With like DVS and laptops, you name it, there are more things that could cause an issue. So you have to make sure you know what to look for so you can see if it is actually something on your end that is wrong. So keep that in mind and make sure you know your equipment. You know the settings, you know how to connect it, you know how it works. You don't want to be that DJ who comes into the club with a controller, and there's already a bias against controllers in some places, and all of a sudden something's not working. Trust me, they're going to be looking at you and they're going to say that you're probably the issue with your controller, when most likely you're not even causing the issue. But you need to make sure that you know how to check if your stuff is connected correctly. Last tip for the digital DJs. Sometimes you need to make sure you restart your laptop. I've had plenty of gigs where I would have my laptop on at home and I would basically just close the lid, open it back up once I got there and connect everything. And a lot of times it worked, but I've had a couple of occasions where things were not working properly until I just rebooted the laptop. So now I just make sure I shut down the computer before I leave the house and I turn it on when I get there, so it starts up fresh. That can make a major difference, especially if you have an older laptop like I do. You just checked out a video clip from my Share the Knowledge podcast. If you want to check out the full audio episodes, you can find me on Anchor, SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple, you name it. Links are in the description box down below, so make sure you check that out. If this is your first time checking out my YouTube channel, I have a lot of DJ-related content, educational content for DJs, tips and tricks, tutorials, reviews, you name it. So make sure you subscribe and activate the notifications so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. See you next time.